How about that defense, folks? Colts defense, do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Presley, Kevin Bowen back. Another edition of Kevin's Corner. Sorry we're coming at you Tuesday morning. Yesterday we had JMV's golf outing, and with a little morning show action, just not enough time to fit in a full hour podcast. So we're recording this Tuesday morning, the 6th of October. Happy birthday to my beautiful wife, Maddie Bowen. Boy, I really hope she likes the present I got her. Man, I guess we'll find out tonight, and hopefully I'll be back on air later this week.
Right.
But we'll see. A shout out to her and Rosie Bow.
Absolutely.
And going out for a little pizza tonight.
Okay.
It's a fitting way, I feel like, to celebrate a birthday there. So, wow, what a great performance on Sunday by the Colts. That was an extremely boring football game.
Yes.
I feel like that kind of is Chicago Bear football, maybe. Mm-hmm. They lull you to sleep, and they bring opponents, and you're lulled to sleep and Soldier Field, especially with no fans in the building. But still, man, that was a terrific defensive performance. We'll obviously hit on that today. And a 3-1 start to the year.
Yes.
You kind of hear everyone breaks up the seasons in quarters in the NFL, and, I know that this is probably the easiest quarter you will have all season long, considering what that schedule looks like. But I think anyone would have taken 3-1. I know people are greedy out there and want to win the opener against Jacksonville, and that was a clunker. But we talked about it on last Wednesday's podcast. You get Sunday, and 5-2 should be that baseline heading into the really tougher stretch. Now, I know Cleveland looks like a much better football team than we thought at the start of the year. But still, home game against Cincinnati, at Detroit, those are two games that you should definitely win. So, that was a really slow-moving game. I felt like a lot of early penalties, but I never felt like the Colts weren't in control.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
wrote down with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter, in my notes, I wrote down, the only way the Colts lose this game is if they give Chicago a short field.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't.
That's it. Yeah, there was no fatal mistake. You were in full, field position control all throughout. And I know a lot of people, and we'll have some Twitter questions on this. Okay. How do you look at this team right now, 3-1? How does it compare last year to 5-2? I've seen more signs defensively early on that have me encouraged moving forward. Yeah. Last year, you finished those first 7 games plus 7 point differential. I mean, this year, your point differential is astronomical compared to that. And again, it's the strides defensively. Last year, you hold on to beat Atlanta, and Matt Ryan's completing 18 passes in a row against you.
Yeah.
You had Derek Carr have a big game against you early on. Tennessee was driving on your side of the field when they failed on a 4th down, and you won that game. Sure, you had the kicking issues, obviously, that played into that. But I'm seeing more signs of playoff football life in this 3-1 start than I saw last year. I thought last year was way too flukish early on. I'm not seeing as much flukishness as I make up words here on this Tuesday morning that makes me believe there could be something there. I will say I think the AFC is a tougher out, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Kansas City and Baltimore, and it might be time to throw Buffalo into that top tier as well. Who knows what Tennessee and Pittsburgh will have after their issues. I guess Pittsburgh brought into those issues. But still, 3-1, I think Colts fans should be pleased with that.
It was nice to be in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
I mean,
firmly. And that's 3 weeks in a row.
Yes. And if you're a Bear, like towards the end of the game, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not a Bears fan, but they got to be looking at this game. Here we go again. Maybe here comes the comeback. But I would much rather obviously have the lead and, try and stop a team than.
Right. And I never, ever thought they were going to come back. I just, it was like, oh, yeah, the Bears have done this before. But I'm like, no, this is not Atlanta. This is not the Giants. DeAndre Swift is not dropping a ball in the end zone. Like, this is a good Colts team.
Mm-hmm.
And, sure, you have questions. Can they win a shootout? We'll talk about the offense with some issues there, definitely. And you're going to have better tests. I don't think Chicago is a playoff team. I don't know. 7 teams get in the NFC and the AFC this year. Who knows? But still, there are signs of playoff life.
Absolutely. Well, Kev, let's jump into what you did like from that game. Like we said, we were in the driver's seat most of the time. What's one of the first things that you felt like we had control of?
Yeah, I thought it was the best defensive performance of the season. And I know a lot of people will say, wait. not as many turnovers. Didn't have the pick sixes. That stuff, to me, can come and go. It can come in bunches. It can be a bit flukish again. I mean, playmaking. Okay, Sam Darnold throws you a ball that he never should throw. That stuff, you put yourself in a position to make those plays, but even like the Julian Blackmon pick. I mean, that's a ball that goes off Anthony Miller's hands. Julian Blackmon deserved it. We'll talk about Blackmon, but still, the amount of just sound get off the field and force a punt drives through the first 3 quarters of this game, to me, is a more dominant, more week in and week out type of defensive performance. You just totally stuffed their run game.
Yes.
They had a long rush of 6 yards. 6 yards in 60 minutes of football. How do you not just fall into a 1 8-yard gain? Something. Under 2 yards per carry. This was more of a repeatable defensive performance. 3 picks in week 2, 3 picks in week 3. That's not traveling with you week in and week out. What you did on Sunday, that can be a calling card because you only had 1 sack for the game.
Mm-hmm.
You only had 1 pick. What happens if you do sprinkle in a couple more turnovers? Now you're even more dominant than you were, and that's, I guess, always been my thing with this defense is like, can you control a game? Can you win a football game? The Colts won that football game because of their defense. Sure, special teams played a big role again, but they won it because of that unit. In that, all right, Bears, 1 first down. Okay, now you're punting. Field goal drive. Okay, you're going to punt the 6 other drives in the first 3 quarters. Just no signs of life from that Bears defense. I think it ended up being 7 punts in their first 8 series. And I thought you set the tone on the first drive of, Buckner disengages from a block, makes a tackle. Kari Willis disengages, makes a tackle. I think Xavier Rhodes had the pass breakup on 3rd down. Rock Ya-Sin came back, I think, the next drive with a beautiful pass breakup on 3rd down. It's the word I used yesterday, which it's not a great word to use in 2020, but I will use it again. This defense seems to be very the playmaking seems to be very contagious.
Yeah.
It's just everyone is getting in on it. You could name every single player at every level of this defense, and they have made a notable play in the first, I guess, in this three-game win streak. Shout out to Anthony Walker.
Mm-hmm.
We got a lot of trade questions last week on the podcast. That's why I'm not a fan of it. You're 1 injury away from really needing him, and then he goes out and gives you 11 tackles in, not playing 100% of the snaps. Bobby Okereke, I thought played well, too, with Darius Leonard missing that time. So just an unbelievable job against the run. I thought Nick Foles looked like a guy that started for 5 NFL teams and has never held on to his starting job. It's just timing was weird. He looked like a first-time starter with his offense where you're not in full hurry-up mode like you were maybe in Atlanta last week. So, man, the Bears just look so boring. They just
It was old school. Like you said, it was Chicago football.
Yeah, it was Craig Krenzel. It was, whoever your quarterback is, it was pathetic to watch. I guess I'm glad they wore colorful jerseys. That's about the only thing that I thought was lively about them.
You mentioned the Blackmon pick. Do you want to talk about his play?
Yeah, just one or two more things left on the defense, and I'll slide in special teams. 11-yard advantage and average drive start. What was it? It was 25 yards one week. It was 16 yards the other week. Like, those stats, to me, probably stand out more than anything for the first quarter of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. The field is only 100 yards long.
Right.
You're getting an 11-yard advantage every single drive. An extra first down. And you aren't this crazy explosive offense, and your defense has had these questions, yet you're able to control the field position like they have. It's just incredible. And I continue, and I think we saw life of it on the first series against Minnesota. Even though they drove down the field, what happened? The Colts made things difficult for Kirk Cousins and Adam Thielen. Completions were hard to come by.
Yeah.
Think about what they did Sunday. It was the Rhodes contest on the pass deflection. It was the Rock Ya-Sin contest on the pass deflection. We will touch on Blackmon here in just a second. things are just more difficult against the Colts defense. And I know that sounds pretty simple, but it hasn't been there in past years. So major credit to Matt Eberflus for making the changes week 1, and just for this defense for at every level, starting with Buckner, with every level, providing playmaking, but like the playmaking on Sunday wasn't necessarily in the turnover department. It was just straight up great tackling in the open field, great discipline from an assignment standpoint. And Chicago, okay, 2 yards, 3 yards, pass breakup, incomplete pass, punt.
They were shadowed on every play.
Everything. And again, that to me, Chris, is why it's the most impressive defensive performance of the season. Turnovers, you can't rely on them every week. It's just, they're weird, man.
Yep.
Khalil Mack drops an interception that could have totally changed the game. Like, that shit's just weird.
Yeah.
What is, I think, more of a true story is, can I get off the field, go sit on the bench, come back on the field, and then get off the field again without allowing points? Can I do that repeatedly throughout a game? Colts did that on Sunday.
And what's good to see, just quickly back to your word of saying contagious, seeing how genuinely happy the other players are for each other on big pass breakups and deflections and just the small things that make you win a football game is awesome to see.
Yeah, and I know we got a question about Rivers trash talking, so I guess we'll wait for that. But the whole bring the juice, what we talked about in the offseason about this is a team that is a high-character football team, and I think it's a self-motivated football team. That is important in 2020. And Phillips said after the game, like, we created more energy than they did. No fans in that building. And the Colts created more energy than the Bears did with their play, but also I think just with their emotion. I mean, the Bears just benched their starting quarterback after a 3-0 start. They know they aren't very good. So you were able to, I think, kind of feast on that a bit, ride a little bit of momentum, which I know is a dangerous game, and get a really, really nice win.
Yeah, so Julian Blackmon, I mean, continues to impress. Thoughts on him?
Stud. You know, I remember when the pick first happened, the ACL really worried me.
Right.
And as I went back and watched film, I was like, oh, wow, okay. I get it. I understand it. Because the Colts were always really high on him. Love just the 2020 skill set that he brings. And by that, I mean 2 years at corner, 1 year at safety. You need those guys in today's NFL. This is not Cam Chancellor. This is not roided up LaRon Landry. This is a guy that is more of a cover safety. I mean, he's not overwhelmingly big.
No.
6 foot, probably listed at 195, something like that. But he plays bigger than that. And then also, he is just one of the more instinctual guys I've seen in the secondary, which I think Carl Willis is super instinctual as well. I think Kenny Moore is probably one of the more instinctual football players that the Colts have had in quite some time. So, dude, he's just there's no hesitancy. There's no fear. I watch him and I'm like, 10 months from the ACL.
Yeah.
And he's a second-year starting safety.
Right.
You know, I mean, he only did it for 1 year.
You talked about the ACL. For me, when I found out, like, this guy was a corner, I'm like, okay, so he's a transition safety, and he still didn't put a lot of film out there, but they're high on him. Yeah,
and just it'd be one thing to be super impressed by his ability to recover from the ACL. Like, if he was playing football and running down covering kicks, I'd be like, damn, that's really impressive. Good for him. You know, probably going to be more of a redshirt year on defense because we see the Colts aren't using a whole lot of third safety, fourth safety. That's something they've done in the past. We haven't really seen any of that this season. But, and I posted something on 1075thefan.com yesterday morning. You have to look at the amount of playmaking that he has provided you. And this is more of I'm getting my hand on the ball and doing something with it, whether it is catching the interception the other week or the other day, whether it's having the jarring hit to break up the pass.
Right.
I think he just flat out got his hand on a ball and just kind of knocked it away like you think normal DB. Blackmon now, 2 games as a starter, pretty much played in 2.5 games of football. He played every single defensive snap on Sunday, which I thought was notable. He'd only played about 65% the first 2 games of his NFL debut. He's played about 130 snaps of football. He has 5 passes defensed. That is another way of saying pass breakup, interception, those things. Malik Hooker played over 700 snaps last season.
Mm-hmm.
3.
Wow.
3. Passes defense.
Goes to your instinctual comment, though.
Finds the football,
Yeah.
makes plays on. It's not just finding it. It's you got to make a bang bang play, especially as a safety, especially as a deep safety in this defense. Kari Willis a lot more around the box. Julian Blackman's got to read and react and time it, and he's got NFL timing seemingly down already. And you still aren't allowing the huge over the top chunk that Hooker I thought was really really good at. So you are getting more production from your free safety position, which I think was always something that we kind of fought with Hooker of like, man, shouldn't he be around the ball more? I know his big responsibility is the deep free safety and the center fielder and whatnot, but like, don't you go find it a little bit more? Blackman's finding it. And schematically, I'm sure they're asking him to maybe do a little bit more closer to the line, but still, man, just major hat tip to the rookie.
Yep.
Yes, in an ideal world, I still think having Malik Hooker on your roster healthy would be good just because we are 1 quarter into this season and there is a lot of football left to be played. And so depth is certainly going to be tested. Hell, your offensive line depth could be tested this week with the Anthony Costanzo injury. So, but man, just dude, he's a stud. He's looked like a stud. And I just can't believe he's doing it 10 months removed. They drafted him for his ability to find the ball. That was the biggest thing that they liked. Certainly the corner background. He was an All-American at safety last season, but which is crazy to think a 1-year safety and you have an All-American campaign. But 32 and white looked really, really good on Sunday. Really good.
Well, not every game's perfect. Each week you do have some things that you want to talk about that you didn't necessarily like. Let's jump into one of those right now, and that would be the run game.
Yeah, run game. And first off, offensive line from a pass protection standpoint, still pretty good. You know, they Gumble and Rich Gannon, who, boy, just said some shit that made me want to throw the remote and shatter a window. They mentioned early on Rivers has been out of the pocket. By the way, there's no one slower in the NFL than Philip Rivers.
There's not.
Every kicker is faster than him. Every quarterback is faster than him. Every fullback is every offensive line. I mean, he's the slowest human being that's maybe ever played in the NFL.
Claims he could still beat Big Ben in a foot race,
nope,
but
no chance.
No.
Literally no chance. He had only been out of the pocket 1 snap all season. You know, and that's a great job by him, certainly knowing that he can't run, so he's got to get the ball out quick. But from a pass protection standpoint, there were a few, muddy your pockets. Pocket collapsed a little bit quicker on Sunday at times, but and that was expected, I think, facing that front. Again, it's probably one of the more talented pass rushing fronts, and I really want to drive that home. Chicago is a very good pass rushing team. They are not good against the run. They came into Sunday like 23rd or 24th against the run against 3 teams that, I mean, Atlanta's not running it. The Giants aren't running it.
Yeah.
Saquon's hurt. It's just one of those things where you aren't – this is not some stout run defense team, and yet you couldn't get that aspect of the game going. Your running backs were 3 yards per carry. Combine all of them, Taylor, Wilkins, and Hines, and you gave all of them at least – hell, I think all of them had at least 9 carries in the game. So it's my biggest disappointment through the first 4 weeks of the season, Chris. You have been healthy up front, and your offensive line has played nowhere near elite from a run game standpoint.
Yeah.
And again, there's 2 parts of the O-line, obviously. It's pass protection and the run game, and we are focused on the run game here. Dead last in the NFL. Yards per carry right now. The Indianapolis Colts. Like, what? Dead last? I mean,
you would not expect that.
No.
Not at all.
Frank was really second and long, run happy on Sunday, and not a lot of success with it. And I know, a lot of people are tuning me after the game. Man, what do you think of Frank's play calling? I don't think he's trying to get too cute with it. He's just, it's pretty vanilla in terms of the second and long runs. I would say where he might be getting cute with it is Frank, I think, is a big, what do our analytics say about tendencies?
Mm-hmm.
When Nyheim Hines is on the field, are we running it enough to where we aren't tipping our hand? Like those sorts of things. And so my fear is are you setting up week 4 play calls so week 13 the numbers indicate you are more balanced and now a defense can't. And some people be like, dude, that's super deep. Is he really thinking like that?
It's chess.
It's chess, and we know he's a chess guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's certainly that, which I like about him. But at times, there is what you saw on Sunday where you just don't get it going at all from a run game standpoint. I would say the thing that stood out to me the most that was disappointing on Sunday especially was just all the negative runs. To get 8 stuffs, no gain or loss. And Jordan Wilkins had 2 more where they should have been tackles for loss, and Wilkins just ran around and was able to get a couple yards out of it. So I've been very disappointed in this run game. I think Quentin Nelson has not looked like the Quentin Nelson that we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
He creates an incredibly high standard for himself, and he has not been that at all. And it's just one of those things where this team is built for their offensive line to be elite. That's how you're built. You've invested so much into that group. And with the injuries you have at wideout, and Phillip probably going to have to hold on to the ball a little bit more, there's even more pressure on that offensive line right now. And I came out of Sunday thinking, if that's the offensive line performance you get in January, you won't be playing long in the month of January.
No.
So, and again, it's a healthy group. And now Costanzo's got the rib injury and didn't play those final 4 or 5 snaps of the game. And we'll see where he's at when the Colts get back on the practice field tomorrow. But it's just like, man, you need better from that run game because you are lacking a little bit of punch at I guess a little bit at quarterback. Rivers didn't play great on Sunday, but certainly at wideout right now without Campbell. And this offense has not been the same since they lost Campbell.
No.
I mean, think about, I talked about it on last Wednesday's podcast. I went back and watched all those third down plays. Campbell out of the slot was such a weapon for this team week 1, and that's gone. That's gone. TY is not TY. We continue to see that. And now you're losing a guy like Michael Pittman. And sure, the tight ends, they can help you out. But it's like, I see a stat sheet after the game, and I see 8 targets for Zach Pascal and 5 targets for Trey Burton, who's had 2 practices all year. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Let's get Mo Alley a little bit more involved. Let's get TY a little bit more involved as well, because I think you're going to have to stress. You're going to have to open up the run game a little bit more, because I do think the Colts are running against some heavy boxes.
True.
But still, it was the biggest thing. I guess this is my last point on the run game, Chris. During the offseason, I wrote a story that got some pushback of saying the Colts run game has another step to go to be elite. Very good, but to be elite, you've got to perform against the better run defenses.
Right. And
the Saints and the Bucs and the Raiders last season, the Colts were 3.2 per carry. I'm not asking to be 4.5, 5. That's unrealistic. But you got to be upper 3, hovering around 4 against the top run defenses, because your offense needs that so much.
Yeah.
Because your passing game is just not going to be this explosive top 5 attack. So, it's the most disappointing aspect of this team through the first 4 weeks.
We talked about playing longer into January. You're not going to play long into January either if you do not convert in the red zone, and that's your other topic that you want to talk about.
That was the only reason why people probably didn't turn the channel on Sunday. It never got to 3 scores. It was always 2, and you always were kind of like, oh boy, 1 fumble, 1 muff punt, something like that, and that can totally change this game. What stands out to me, man, is you're 1 of 4 in the red zone, but 0 of 3, or I guess 1 of 4 also in goal to go. You got to the 10-yard line on all of those trips. Twice you got inside the 10 and you failed.
Yeah.
So I think that is what's disappointing. I know you targeted Mo on the pick that was overruled. I'd like to see him even more involved in the red zone, because I think if nothing else, it creates a, oh gosh, where is 81 sort of feel for your defense right now, and that's lacking. T.Y.'s never been a touchdown guy.
No.
So, you're not going to get a huge red zone presence there. I just think Ali Cox has got to be a weapon down there. They tried to get the defense moving laterally a few times. They brought Hilton in motion, and I actually think threw it out to him one time. They brought Marcus Johnson in motion as well. So they're trying to do some things that they did with Campbell.
Yeah.
But it's just not having the same sort of effect there. at all. And I think I mentioned this at my Instagram feed at halftime, which I do every week. For those that have never even knew that I had an Instagram, KBowen1070 here. Sound like my mom. We do an Instagram live at halftime every week. And I mentioned this, that Rivers is such a timing quarterback. His timing when you have 80 yards of field to go and the defense isn't full press and 8 guys within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, or hell, even more than that, probably more than that, that strength kind of goes out the window a little bit in the red zone. You know, there is less timing windows. You know, he's kind of overthrown Pascal twice and just no chance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the ball's hit the crossbar, I feel like, both times. It's just kind of like he panics a little bit. And again, panic isn't the right word. It looks like he panics because he can't move. And so, unless it happens in 3 seconds, your O-line's not holding up that long in the red zone. And the coverage is just not going to break down that often. So, the Colts have, I think, got to do a better job schematically in just drawing some things up that get you quicker rhythm stuff, because it's just hard for a 3 or 4 second play to work in that short area of the field. I would like to see in general just some no huddle stuff from the Colts. We haven't really seen that since week 1. I know they tried a couple screens in the second half and that did not work out well, but I thought against that pass rush it might work out considering how aggressive they are. And boy, I mean, Hakeem Hick's a great player.
Yes, he is.
And yeah, they do have a good pass rushing front. So yeah, red zone definitely has to be cleaned up. And that was, that was Rivers. It was his least efficient game of the year. Jacksonville's worse because he made a couple fatal mistakes. He didn't make the fatal mistake on Sunday. And I think we got to keep that in mind.
Right.
It's a weird balance. He didn't make that, Chris, yet he also threw up a couple, like, YOLO balls to Hilton, to Pascal was actually just a great play. Marcus Johnson, Hilton caught a couple YOLO balls.
Yes.
He at least has given them a chance. And that's where I don't think Jacoby did that enough last season. So, and I know that's a fine balance, giving them a chance versus obviously having that fatal mistake that could have led to a short field. But Rivers had some throws on Sunday that's like, all right, those people that think Rivers can't play outside, can't play in wind, his playoff resume has been pretty ugly over the last decade. Sunday makes me want to revisit that. Now, the Colts really, I think they're at Pittsburgh week 16. Like, that's it in terms of what you consider inclement weather. They play Vegas at Vegas, early December. So, I think that's something that I will be watching for. But, yeah, Rivers made some throws on Sunday that was like, dude, is this Brian Hoyer trying to throw the game from I bet on the Patriots 6.5 live halfway through the game. And if someone would have told me Brian Hoyer was throwing the game, I would have appreciated that info.
Yeah.
That man was throwing the game last night. Incredible.
At the end of the half, it's like, what are you doing?
He did it twice.
What are you doing? Yeah, right. But no, you're right. There were some throws outside the numbers where I'm like, Phil.
Two hopping them and whatnot. So
yeah,
that it goes. And I don't know, man. Is some of the right play calling? We can't get into those obvious passing situations because that stuff can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like, hey, I've got to run it on 2nd and long because I think that'll get us to 3rd and 5. Now, devil's advocate will say, well, why not throw it and get 5 yards? Or, have the chance to maybe get a bigger gain than just 5 yards. Hell, the Colts weren't even getting 5 yards on their 2nd and long runs. But, is that – it's probably too early to say that, and I don't think it is creeping into Reich's head. But I think there was something – and this goes back to the defense, honestly, more than anything. He was so damn confident in his defense Sunday.
Yep.
I think he called the game a bit more conservatively than he would normally. And he said, I didn't go for the 4th and 1 because it's like, why give them a short field? Why even think about that? So I do think that played into it a little bit.
True. All right. Should we jump into some Twitter questions?
Yes.
All right. This first one's going to come from Bailey. How fun is it having a quarterback that chirps at defenders all game? Loved him letting the Bears D know what 2-8 was doing to them.
Dude, I absolutely love it. I do. And I am I love entertainment. And that is entertaining to me. I know it probably pisses some Colts fans off. Like, just shut up and play. But dude, I don't sit on my front lawn and yell at the neighbor kids. Like, just go. I mean, like, have some fun. And he's having fun.
He is.
And he doesn't cuss, which is hilarious. I don't trust people that probably don't cuss, but still, it's just like, that is fun to see. I mean, he chirps, man. Jimmy Graham's catching a pass early in the game. He's chirping right then. He's yelling at Roquan Smith from the other sideline. It is, he is I mean, we talked about this after the signing. He is so freaking passionate.
Yeah.
Running his mouth to the Colts fans back at, 2008. And, when Ballard talked this offseason about creating friction, his passion, I think, creates friction because everyone has to meet his standard.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we've seen him talk to Michael Pittman after a play. Like, we're going to see a fired-up Phillip Rivers internally on camera at some point this season. I think that's necessary. I think he creates a little bit more of a level of accountability that this offense and this team in general needed. But like I was saying earlier, man, you bring juice. You have some energy. And in a 2020 season where things aren't as lively as they normally are from an environment standpoint, that's absolutely necessary. So I keep on chirping, Phillip. If it costs you, I don't care. Keep on chirping.
I think it's safe to say at the end of the year when they do the bad lip reading, Phillip Rivers will be in a lot of those clips.
100%. Mic him up every week.
Yeah. Okay, this one's from Jordy. Who has been the Colts MVP through the first quarter of the season? I'd say Buckner. He's been as advertised and his disruption on the D-line.
Jordy, I'd probably go with Buckner. I do think Rigoberto Sanchez has been really good. Yeah. I know he had his first touchback on Sunday in over a year, but it's interesting, Chris. If you look at Buckner's numbers, let me make sure I have this right. Okay, so he's got a sack and a half. He had that against the Vikings.
Right.
And he's got 2 tackles for loss. So if you extrapolate that out, an 8 tackles for loss and a 6 sack season would really be it would not be an all-pro year.
No.
Like, I mean, those individual numbers are not all-pro, but I feel like he's playing a lot better than those numbers indicate.
It's the numbers that the other guys around him are getting that shows his true dominance.
And I still think for him to truly live up to number 13 pick hype, he's got to give you a little bit more in the individual numbers. But I'm with you, man. I mean, he's already got 8 quarterback hits now that I'm looking at these stats. He had 14 all last season. So, yeah, I mean, certainly you probably want to see just another sack, another tackle for loss. Chicago's got 8 of them on Sunday.
Yeah.
But I also think there's an amount of he is just commanding a presence that is opening up. We've seen Autry get involved. We've seen homeboy Grover Stewart get involved. Obviously, Justin Houston seemingly has a sack every week as well. So, yeah, I would probably give it to Buckner, but it's not so much for his individual numbers. I think it's more of you're the best player on one of the best units in football through 4 weeks, so you deserve it.
Yeah. Kevin, Craig feels like the Colts O-line was bullied by the Bears' defensive line, especially when it comes to running the ball. Felt like, again, we struggled against a good defense when it came to the run game. What can be done, and is this Colts offensive line potentially overrated?
Well, I don't think there's any potentially about it. I mean, all I hear from Colts fans is they're the greatest offensive line ever and this and that. I mean, they are overrated. You can't be dead last in yards per carry and not be an overrated offensive line. Now, I can say overrated and still think they have the potential and they've shown it that they can be one of the league's best, but they are not right now. Top 3, top 4. I mean, you can't be that poor. And I know you take some kneel downs, and that stat can get a little skewy, but you're 32. You take out the kneel downs, you're still 22. It's not like you're and everyone to a degree has some kneel downs as well. So it's just, you have to have healthy, you have to have elite. And I said it earlier, this offense isn't as dynamic without Campbell. You have to rely on your strength of 4 top 40 picks along that offensive line. And Frank mentioned it leading into the Chicago game. The Colts were 0 for 4 on 3rd and shorts coming into the game. I mean, he was very disappointed in that. That's on your O-line. They established line of scrimmage and reestablish it. And now all of a sudden, if you do have an injury up front, like, what's the trickle-down effect there as well? So, what I think can be done, I just think it's got to be a wake-up call with that unit of, doesn't strike me as a group that would read its press clippings. Is Quentin's hip still bothering him? We saw it week 1, I think it was, on the injury report. I don't know, man, but that group has got to play better in the run game area.
Jack feels like despite the play of the defense early on, the Colts are probably going to go at a cornerback this offseason. Feels like one of the better ones is actually Marco Wilson, who's the brother of Quincy. Would you consider drafting him?
Oh, no, I think it's good to stay away from the Wilson family. Yeah. And I've watched Florida twice this year. You and I were texting about it on Saturday, Chris. Yeah, nice player. Mm-hmm. Will get drafted fairly high. They have a couple nice DBs as well, even though I'm 0-2 on betting against them and for them in 2 weeks. But, I think it's probably best to stay away from the Wilson bunch, judging by Quincy's comments and even Father Wilson's, not the priest, their dad. Some of his comments as well.
Yeah, not a bad call. Okay, this is from Mac, who actually lives outside of the Chicago area. So for him, the Colts beating the Bears was nice. And also on a personal level, he has a friend who knows Jordan Glasgow, so it was nice for him to show up, he felt like. But he has a question regarding Phillip Rivers and what you talked about earlier. Looked like he couldn't even step on a bug 1 foot outside of the pocket with somebody sacking him. Lackluster creativity with the running game to him, it seems, and seems like our team has kind of turned into the 2018 Bears, although our defense is maybe not as good.
Dude, I don't want any comparison to the Bears. I'm sorry. I feel like their offense just scores 16 to 23 points every week. Hell, they didn't even score 16 on Sunday. Who am I kidding? All right. Is this, I guess, more of a play calling question here?
Just more about the run scheme.
Lackluster creativity with the run game. Too vanilla. We talked about the second and long runs, and Warren Sharp, who does a lot of analytics, mentioned this yesterday. How many first down runs the Colts had in Bears territory? And again, is part of that, got to get into third and manageable. Cannot have an incompletion on first down. Cannot have a holding penalty because Reich mentioned, I think Reich, one of his biggest keys coming into Sunday was, can our O-line one-on-one block their D-line? Because they like to bring 5 at a time.
Yeah.
And I think there's some fear there of a sack, holding penalty, those things. Is Frank scared of this passing offense? I don't know. I mean, as far as the run game creativity, it does seem like just a lot of straight up the middle runs on 2nd and 10 and, slower developing draw plays. You'd like to get Taylor in space again. Is something, again, Rich Gannon's calling him sneaky fast. I'm like, the dude ran freaking 4.38 in the 40.
He's not sneaking
fast. That ain't sneaking up on anybody.
No.
So, I would like to see some quick tempo. I know that's not necessarily a jolt to the run game, but you ran it pretty well week 1 when you did go quick tempo, and I do think that can kind of wear down a defense as the game moves along. So I am a little bit worried about this passing offense, though, and just the potency of it. Phillip obviously had great success weeks 2 and 3 especially, and even 1 of just hitting on enough chunks. I think his yards per attempt was 6.5 on Sunday, which, is kind of like last year, to be honest with you. So if teams are able to take away the run game, though, that is going to stymie, I think, what you can do 10, 15, 20 yards down the field. So you have to get this run game going at a higher clip.
Shane asks, all right, honestly, 4 weeks into the season, what's the difference between the 2020 Colts and the 2019 Colts? Not much of a difference?
Oh, no. There's a difference to me. I think certainly on the defensive side of the ball, Shane. I mean, again, like I was saying earlier, it's, Matt Ryan holding on for dear life, 18 straight completions against you. Hell, I remember Derek Anderson had, maybe that was 2 years ago now that I think about it. I mean, there's just been success against this defense that has never looked like this.
Yeah.
You have probably not played a top, I don't know, Cousins is probably top 20, but you have not played a top 10 quarterback offense yet. But you are still doing to mediocre to poor quarterbacks what you have not always done. And that needs to be commended, and that is a positive step forward.
And what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to make them look like a not top 20 quarterback.
If you are a January football team, that's what you do.
Yeah.
And the Colts have done that so far. So Again, there are other boxes to be checked, and we will see this team and opportunities with that. Cleveland's intriguing to me on Sunday, but then I also just think you still are Cleveland. Like I know you're 3-1, but and the Nick Chubb injury I think is something notable as well. But the point differential, man. I mean, you're +7 through those first 7 games last year, and I don't know what you are right now, but you've got to be 30, 40, something like that through the first 4 games of the season. So definitely a difference in 2020 to 2019.
This one comes from Isaac. Is it fair to say that after the wide receiver struggles, that Campbell was the most valuable offensive player?
You know, Isaac, I still think it's Costanzo, but there's a reason why I stressed the Paris Campbell injury being the most impactful out of Marlon Mack and Malik Hooker. He's the unique guy. He's the guy that you don't have to script up a whole lot. No one else is like him. No one else is like him in that wideout room. And for a quarterback that you have questions and concerns about stretching the field and hitting outside the numbers, when a guy can go take the ball and make, I mean, still, think about it. Yards after catch, Marcus Johnson, Zach Pascal, T.Y. Hilton on Sunday. I don't remember any of it.
No.
I mean,
a lot of jump balls. I mean,
you know, it's just, and Campbell is the one that can give you a little bit more post-catch. So, yeah, Isaac, I mean, the more I think about it, I'd probably put Campbell pretty high on that list, though, of offensive players that are the most valuable.
Kevin, Matt wants to know, would you go after Matt Ryan if he's available to replace Rivers next year?
No, I don't think so. I don't think Matt Ryan is terrible by any means, but, I mean, what is he? He's got to be close to, he's got to be 35-ish.
Yeah, it has to be.
You know, I think it's key for Chris Ballard, and obviously we saw, I don't know, did we get a Trey Lance question?
We did get a Trey Lance question.
I guess I'll wait for that one. You know, I don't want to see the Colts fall in the trap of, like, Band-Aid. Band-Aid. Sustaining that is very difficult. Hitting on Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid is really tough.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, if Rivers, and again, I fully expect Philip Rivers to be the quarterback for the Colts next season. If for some reason that doesn't happen, it's time to move on to the future.
Yeah. This one comes from Cameron. He says, I know it's a very small sample size, but is Julian Blackmon everything Hooker was supposed to be and more? Seemed to recover way faster from the injury, has ball hawking ability, playmaking, plus, as he stresses, physical. Always hurts to miss a top 15 pick, but seems like Blackmon could be everything we drafted Hooker to be and more.
You know, Cameron, we are 2.5 games into Julian Blackmon's NFL career, but I can't disagree with really anything he just said. And the physical.
Right.
I mean, you know, J&V was asking me yesterday, who would you compare Blackmon to past Colts safety? I got a lot of Bob Sanders 2.0, this and that. No. I mean, Bob was just incredibly physical. There's a mix of a Bob and Antoine Bethea in there of that corner instinct and that corner background is, and the safety position has evolved really.
Yeah.
You know, probably the most of any kind of defensive position. Sure, you're playing a lot of nickel and stuff like that. But again, the safety is not just my thumper and my cover. It's mostly 2 cover guys as well. And it's a bonus when these guys can play physical. And Blackmon plays bigger than 6 foot.
Right.
And 195. So, again, I think where you miss Hooker is just insurance policy for depth. That's where you really miss him right now. You know, Corey Willis, we saw banged up at times last season as well. But, man, Blackmon is checked. I mean, we are 2.5 games, but the dude looks like a flat-out stud.
Yeah. All right, this one's from Clark. People have been focusing on the consistency of the offensive health. Are these guys playing so hurt that they're hurting the team? Can't get any damn push up front. Goes back to the middle of last season.
Clark fired up on this Tuesday morning. Okay, are any of them hurt? Well, Costanzo, obviously a little banged up Sunday late in the game, but man, Nelson, injury report week 1. Braden Smith, no. Injury report, Ryan Kelly, no. Glowinski, no. No, I mean, none of them have been on the injury report. And I mean, typically, if a guy is getting significant treatment, they show up on the injury report. I mean, you can full practice every day and still be on the injury report. So, yeah, I mean, and even going back to practice this year, I don't remember any of them missing a day besides Smith missing that little bit of time for a foot injury early on.
Right.
But that's it. So, yeah, man, I don't know. It's all those negative runs Sunday. I mean, 8 or 9 of them? That's a lot of negative runs. Yes. And I did not expect a month into the season Jonathan Taylor to be under 4 yards per carry.
Right. All right, Kevin. Gary, who never misses a minute of the pod, wants you
Gary's so loyal.
Yes, he is. Wants you to pie chart this using the factors. Mo Alley Cox, marked improvement this season is what percentages? Number 1, opportunity. Number 2, personal improvement. Number 3, Phillip Rivers at quarterback.
Okay. I would say personal improvement, 50%.
Okay.
You know, this is a dude that played freshman year of football, and that was it. I would say Rivers here, 20%. I mean, the Colts still love to use their tight ends. I mean, I know Rivers likes big bodies and, whatever. So, yeah, 30% opportunity. I mean, he still is – yes, he's playing some more, and the injuries have happened, but it's not like he's playing an absurd amount more.
Right.
I looked at the tight end snaps on Sunday. I want to say all 3 of them were really close to 50%. That's all. And again, when we talked about the Michael Pittman injury last week, I kind of leaned towards once Burton's healthy, I think that's where you make up.
Yes.
I mean, they don't trust Reese Fountain that much. Like, they don't have a huge amount of trust in Ashton Dulin. They brought up Marcus Johnson off the practice squad, which I thought was smart, but, Desmond Patman clearly is not ready in their eyes as well as he continues to be a healthy scratch. So, that's a good question, Gary. Yeah.
So here's the Trey Lance question you mentioned earlier, Kevin. This one's from Ross. It says, I know it's early to think about the draft, but thoughts on Ed Dodds scouting Trey Lance? I believe that was a Cincinnati game that people were talking about.
Central Arkansas.
Oh, I was way off then.
Yeah, North Dakota State, Central Arkansas. So North Dakota State is playing one football game this year.
Yes.
And they just did. And so Trey Lance is, a guy that we've talked about on this podcast before. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Those seem to be the 3. Obviously, Lawrence probably in a class by himself. But Trey Lance didn't throw a pick all last season. Pro-style offense. Easton Stick, I think, is Russell Wilson's backup in Seattle. Maybe he's with the Chargers. I don't know. I need to look that up. And then obviously Carson Wentz. So there is some history with. He's with the Chargers. Stick. There is some history there of quarterbacks come in the NFL, and it's not just Carson Wentz out of this offense. So people are really impressed by Trey Lance physically. The no picks obviously last year, whatnot. Thoughts on Ed Dodds at the Trey Lance game? It's extremely notable to me. They had Ed Dodds, who was the assistant general manager for Chris Ballard, his right-hand man. Chris Ballard trusts him to the nth degree. And think back to 2017 when Chris Ballard did early homework on Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Your GM is not going to a whole lot of college games in the fall. Certainly not going to Fargo. I assume that's where the game was. Yeah, I think they were in the Fargo Dome. The night before a game against the Bears. So it caught my eye. This wasn't, again, John Dorsey watching Patrick Mahomes in the fall of 2017. It was Chris Ballard. And clearly the Colts are going to do their due diligence of this quarterback class. It's doing your homework. I think it's very smart. You want to see these guys in person. It's the only chance to see Trey Lance all year long. But, yeah, Ed Dodds went to Washington last year with Brian Decker, their kind of mental guru, but that's not the right phrase, but whatever. The guy that kind of is their background check person. They went to Seattle to scout Jacob Eason and to look more into his background and whatnot. So, yeah, it has caught – not every team sent their assistant GM to that game. So, it is definitely notable to me. And it wasn't shocking. I think it's very smart. Not shocking at all. We've said it. The Colts should be interested in the future at quarterback early in next year's draft. And I do believe this kind of goes back to, we got the question last week. I don't think Ballard's willing to move up. I disagree with that. I think he is willing to move up. He's got to fall in love, which is a big question, but he is willing to move up. And You're not sending Ed Dodds to Fargo to watch their left tackle or their right tackle. Like, you're sending him there to see Trey Lance. And for what it's worth, I think Lance was a bit up and down. I know he threw a pick in the game and was more of a runner than he really showed last season. But, yeah, thick guy. I saw Daniel Jeremiah, I think, threw out kind of a Dak Prescott sort of comparison there to him and whatnot. But, yeah, it caught my eye, man.
2 more questions here. This one's from Matt. With a month until the trade deadline, what are your thoughts on upgrading via trade? Says, I know that trading away picks isn't Ballard's thing to do, but wondering how COVID impacts scouting, could add depth at the wide receiver, defensive end, or cornerback core.
Yeah, Matt, it's a good question. Obviously, we get a lot of these, and I don't love giving up a draft pick, which people have heard. But if you are in a dire situation, Chris, and you are a team that looks like will be in the playoffs, Costanzo goes down.
Yeah.
Hilton goes down. Buckner goes down. Throwing out some of those names, I would probably do a little bit more research. Now, obviously, that's got to happen here in the next couple weeks because the trade deadline, I'm pretty sure, is like late October. So, yeah, but you got to be in a dire situation. It's got to be season ending for me at one of those spots, and you got to believe that your team can still make a run, which I know is a tough conversation to have internally.
Mm-hmm.
You have so much belief, and every year in the NFL is beyond precious. But if one of those guys goes down, do you really think a trade can get this team to playing championship-level football in January and beat a Kansas City or a Baltimore or a Buffalo?
Right.
Those are the tough conversations when you know full well that you should be in the quarterback trade-up market as well. So, Matt, it's a great question, but I really it's so case by case. You got to be in a dire situation injury-wise.
Last question for this podcast comes from Andrew, who says he hasn't really noticed much of George Odom yet. Has Tavon Wilson taken the snaps to this point in the season?
Yeah, Odom hasn't really played a whole lot. As I mentioned on Sunday, Chris, we have not seen a whole lot of multi-safety packages.
Right.
Khari Willis played all 62 defensive snaps on Sunday. Julian Blackmon, all 62 defensive snaps. You didn't play a third safety.
That's your future. We talked about it.
George Odom, Tavon Wilson, only special teams. So what we're seeing from the Colts is this. When they go nickel, they obviously have Kenny Moore slide in the slot. They typically bring Rock Yassin, Xavier Rhodes, and I guess Kenny Moore would be your 3-corner pairing. They leave the 2 linebackers on the field when they go to any other sub-packages. We haven't seen, in years past, it's sometimes been 4 defensive linemen, just Leonard, and then 6 DBs, and Odom kind of is that dime.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, you haven't played a ton of pass-happy teams. So how does that change when you do see Green Bay next month or something? Or hell, even Cleveland, if Cleveland's going to throw it a little bit more. But, I mean, really, Cleveland did a lot of damage on the ground on Sunday. So, yeah, I mean, Odom is definitely – I don't even think it's Tavon Wilson's taking Odom snaps. I don't think either of them are playing. Wilson did play a little bit more the week before. He's more the free safety. You've been more banged up with the free safety. Odom's more the strong. But that dime package just hasn't been used.
Yeah. All right, that wraps up Twitter questions for this podcast.
I got one more here from Tanner. Okay. Hey, Kev, hope the family is happy and healthy. Thank you, Tanner. They are. Same to you and all of our listeners out there. With a 4th of the season in the books, do you see much improvement in the Rivers as we go? Although he has been efficient with his percentages, I'm ready to see multiple touchdown passing games. I don't know how much improvement we're really going to see. I think a lot of the improvement from Rivers will be predicated on the run game. If you can establish that should open up the play-action aspect and a little bit more of the passing game. I honestly think the Rivers we've seen through the first quarter, the highs and the lows, that's pretty much what you're going to see there. Now, the multiple touchdown passing games, you know how I think about touchdowns. I mean, try gambling on who's going to score the first. Who had Robert Tonyan scoring 3 touchdowns last night for
no kidding
Green Bay. It's the pride of Indiana State.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, good luck. So, sure, you would like to see him, considering the red zone success, lack of success, find more touchdowns, but I would say it's more of just efficiency, finish off drives better. They were a little bit better on 3rd down on Sunday. And finish off drives better by any means necessary. I don't care if he throws for 40 touchdowns. Just get the ball in the end zone.
Yeah.
I mean, Taylor can run it. Hines can run it. Whatever. Just get in there. And so, I don't think we'll see some massive improvement from Rivers. I think he's been, if I'm going to grade him, I'll probably give him a B through the first 4 games. Again, those efficiency numbers.
Yes.
I know we're very recency bias here, but they were really, really good before Sunday, and he didn't make the fatal mistake Sunday. That's kind of always been the Rivers thing. He'll give you a chance.
Yeah.
Hey, Colts are leading, or Chargers are leading in L.A. last year, Week 1. Rivers sees Malik Hooker, doesn't think he can get there. When if they just take a field goal, they're golden. Throws a pick. Gets Colts back in the game. Game goes in overtime. He didn't make that throw on Sunday.
True.
So, credit.
All right.
All right, man. Sorry about the Tuesday morning pod, everyone out there. We'll get this up as soon as possible. We'll come back with our second pod later this week. Next week should be normal. Monday, Wednesday action. We will have a Beers with Bowen later this year.
Yes, we will.
During the regular season.
Yep.
That is something we have not done, but we'll keep you posted on details for that. Again, we'll try to stick to kind of a Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Seemed to work well. Possibly before a Thursday nighter later this year. Something to keep an eye on, but I'm looking forward to that. And am I missing anything else?
I mean, other than the fact that you were humble in the beginning of this podcast and didn't let the people know how you did in the golf outing yesterday.
Well, second place is the first loser.
Okay.
To me, Chris. No, it was fun out there. We really played well. Shout out to Ross Lubbers. Just woe is me all day long, and literally was just a rock solid. You know, when you're the first player in an outing, typically people think you aren't very good. I mean, Ross was, at times, he was our A player. It was
there you go.
To watch. Matt Lubbers, great work as well. Sean Esposito brought terrific energy and provided some big shots as well. So it was fun. Beautiful day at the Legends. We tied for first. I'd love to know how the tiebreaker played out. I will be having a word with Heston later today on that. We might have, shout out to Colts Militia on Instagram. They sent us a Quentin Nelson pancake shirt. Might have a giveaway here later this month. Maybe do something with that as well. So a couple things to keep an eye on for our Kevin's Corner contingent. He's Chris Presley. I'm Kevin Bowen. Everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you a little bit later.